you're sabotaging yourself by consuming educational content or reading first thing in the morning. And if you change this habit, you could change your life, especially if you have ambitious creative or intellectual projects. Now, I'm making this video in response to a comment that I received on my previous video about not wasting your day. This person asked, when you say that early in the day you recommend not to consume any content, do you also include lectures and course learning in that? And the simple, straightforward answer is absolutely yes. When I recommend to people to take the first 15 to 20 minutes at least upon waking up to not consume any content, and hopefully to work towards having first 60 minutes from the moment of waking up to not consume any content, I'm including self-improvement, educational, personal growth content in that. And when I use the word content, I'm including physical books, audiobooks, podcasts, and lectures in that as well. Now, let's make this make sense, because you are considering consumption or reading of educational content a constructive, healthy habit, which it is. So how could this be sabotaging yourself? Well, I don't want to be fear-mongering, so let's just throw in some nuance and say that there are far worse things to do at the start of your day, far worse than consuming educational content. However, if you want to explore your full creative and intellectual potential, then you are sabotaging yourself by consuming even educational content first thing in the morning. I want to read you a quote by none other than Friedrich Nietzsche. He says, "Early in the morning, when the day breaks, when all is fresh in the dawn of one's strength, to read a book at such a time is simply depraved." Now, let's give some context here. Friedrich Nietzsche has read during his lifetime, or maybe even in first 30 years of his life, more than me and every single person who is going to watch this video combined. Another thing to put out there, he was the youngest ever university professor in history of Germany. Not a small feat. He was proficient in classical Greek by the time that he was 20, I believe. So he read a lot. Why is this important to bring up? Because this is not a person who is constructing an argument against a habit that they are finding difficult to engage in. Because we see that a lot nowadays. And the modern term is coping. You know, a person uses their intellect to construct an argument against a behavior that they are not able to engage in. So people criticizing fitness, or let's say people who are finding it difficult to exercise, criticizing fitness as superficial. People who are finding it difficult to read and to be consistent in reading, criticizing being book smart as not being relevant to real life, so on and so forth. So Nietzsche has read more and has studied more than most humans. His intellectual capacity, we could argue, is second to none. And he says to start off your day with reading is simply depraved. Let's focus on two words, fresh and strength. When all is fresh, what is fresh? Your mind is fresh. We know from neuroscience that during sleep, your brain flushes out toxins. So quite literally, your brain is at its freshest when you wake up. This is neuroscientific side of sleep and of the freshness of the morning for those of you who love neuroscience. Let's look at psychology. Who gave us the greatest knowledge regarding dreams and sleep? Freud and later Jung. What happens during sleep, or what happens when we dream? Our unconscious gets a chance to speak up. Our unconscious is influencing us during our daily lives and during our waking hours, but it's during our sleep when the unconscious gets the stage for itself. So what does that mean? When we wake up, there is so much to process. It's not always possible to process what has happened during sleep, to process it on being fully aware of it, to put it that way. Sometimes we remember our dreams, sometimes not. But in any case, to wake up when your mind is at its freshest and after your unconscious has gotten a chance to speak up, to wake up and immediately receive someone else's thoughts. That's sabotage. That's sabotage if you want to explore your full creative and intellectual potential. You have the rest of the day to read all you want, to listen to all the audiobooks and lectures and podcasts you want. Why put that at the very beginning of your day? That's why I'm saying you're sabotaging yourself. One of my major shifts in life came from protecting my morning. But I've explored so many different variations of what it means to protect my morning. And I'm going to admit there is much nuance here in terms of what stage of life you're at and how you're going to use that first 30 to 60 minutes of the day. But once again, if you are a creative person with creative and intellectual ambitions, if you want to create something, by creation I mean if you're going to write fiction, write non-fiction, draw, paint, create music, if you want to recreate your relationship with yourself, any act of creativity, anything that involves getting in touch with yourself and being able to express what is uniquely yours, that requires you to be extremely selfish with those first 15, 20, 30 to 60 minutes of the day. Nietzsche can wait. Jung can wait. Abraham Maslow can wait. Jordan Peterson can wait. Andrew Huberman can wait. All of those people can wait for later. Do not take on other people's thoughts in those freshest moments of your day. As Nietzsche said, when you're full of strength, you're full of creative, intellectual strength, as well as physical. So I would say, how to start implementing this? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Just don't consume anything. But if you're finding it difficult, just make an agreement with yourself. Okay, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then right away I can go into that lecture, podcast, book, whatever. But allow yourself to see what is going to come out of those first 15 to 20 minutes. And then continue educating yourself and consuming other people's thoughts and ideas. Now, what to do in those first 15-20 minutes? That depends on where you're at, if you have ongoing projects or not, and different implications of your life. If you have any project that you would like to engage in, I would recommend diving into it. Of course, we have to again add nuance. What about morning sunlight? What about movement, gratitude? Well, that's the thing. I would advise everyone to move first thing in the morning. So if you're not really strictly set on a specific project, go outside and move and see what thoughts are going to come up during movement. Or maybe nudge your thoughts towards gratitude, towards constructive self-reflection. So the possibilities are endless. Even within those 15 minutes of not consuming anything, there are so many different directions you can take. But the main point is not to allow other people's thoughts and ideas to enter your mind in those first, freshest moments of the day when your mind is capable of so much more than later in the day. Final thing. There are infinite side notes and footnotes when it comes to the morning routine. I'm telling you this as someone who, for the last 6 or 7 years, has been starting his mornings with Bach, with silence, with gratitude, with movement, going straight to work without even going to toilet, waking up and from bed going straight to work to experiment with different productivity tools. So I've tried everything. So once again, depending on where you're at in life, there are infinite side notes and footnotes and nuance to add to this conversation of the morning routine. But when it comes to immensely changing the quality of your life and increasing your intellectual and creative capacity, this is pretty straightforward advice. Protect the first minutes of the day to have for yourself and not to consume anyone else's thoughts and ideas. Now, I'm expecting you in the comments to ask about these nuances, to tell me if you want me to expand this discussion on the morning routine and maybe share your experience and your current situation, where you're at in life, and what do you think you need out of your morning routine, so that I can have an idea of how to expand or in which direction to take the expanded version of discussing the morning routines. Hopefully you find this helpful, and I'm posing a challenge to you, depending on if you're watching this in the morning or at night. The next day, let's try 15 minutes of zero consumption and 15 minutes of seeing what is going to come out of you uniquely in those freshest moments of your mind. Thank you.